She actually had photos of like, this is mature and this is immature and this is how we grade embryos. Oh my gosh, no one's ever explained to me how embryos are actually graded and what they mean. So an embryo, I'm just gonna tell you now. Good morning, ladies. We are on our way to the family building conference that KC Infertility Awareness puts on every year. This is our first time going. I have the husband with me, and it's actually a pretty good lineup of sessions. I have 3 different breakouts that I have signed up for, and I thought I would bring you along for the day. Are you excited, husband?
I'm so excited.
He's so excited. All right, we will see what the day brings.
A little bit about our organization, for those of you that maybe are just getting acquainted with us. We are a locally based 501c3 nonprofit. We were founded in 2011 by 4 local women, all affected personally by infertility. So all of our excess fundraising gets pooled. We take applications every spring and award money out to Kansas City locals to help with the cost of treatment or adoption. Be watching for more information about that throughout the day. This is expensive, and we know it. So.
Since college, I rarely tell people I'm adopted. It's not an important part. That's my mom. And I don't really care what people have to say, even if I look different. It's a freeing experience. I finally get to dictate my narrative, which is really important to me. I may look different than my family, and it may be obvious that I'm adopted when 3 of my brothers are Black, but I don't care because I don't have to tell people, I don't have to be a people pleaser. It's my family, and I'm very defensive of it that this is my family. So I did not have a choice in adoption. But if I did, I would choose 1,000,000 times over to be adopted by my mom and my dad.
As introduced, I am Dr. Laura Ruse. I'm a naturopathic doctor. A lot of people don't really know what naturopathic medicine is, so we're going to talk about that today. And I'm really hoping that today you feel empowered to ask your providers about some alternative interventions to help boost fertility and to really kind of start to take control with things that you can do even starting today at home to help with your overall balance.
Wouldn't it be amazing to drop by a brunch with all of your friends and just casually announce that you're 12 weeks pregnant with an oopsie baby? Because the subtext of that kind of announcement for people like us is like, I'm so young and juicy down there. Like, my ovulation's so regular you can set a clock to it. My lining's nice and thick and my man's shooting that superhero sperm. You can see that I'm a little bit bitter, but I think it's okay because I'm in the right place.
Okay, so after that conference, I was totally wiped out. I had a great day of talking to other infertility warriors, to listening to speakers, which I just showed you, but I wanted to go over what was in the swag bag and what I learned from the speakers, because the talks were, an hour long, so I took notes, and I will now share with you what all is going on. It's been a minute since the conference though, so this will be a good test to see what information actually stuck and what didn't, but let's get started. All right, first things first, everything came in this really nice reusable bag. One of my favorite things that I got, I guess we're just starting off with a bang here, is this sweet t-shirt with the definition of infertility on it. Here, there, now you can see it. There was also a bunch of different books that they were handing out. This one is Tuesday's Grace, A Modern Day Miracle by Sarah Howard. So there was a bunch of infertility and adoption related books there that you could choose from. I just thought this one looked really sweet. They handed out Kleenex, which I thought was really pertinent. I guess pertinent would be the right word. Like, good call on that one. There was a bunch of snacks and sweets in the bag, some of which I ate. They gave out these 1 in 8 buttons, which you wore throughout the day, which I really liked. A bunch of pens from the various sponsors. American Adoptions was there, and so was Perry Drug, which is our local fertility drug pharmacy here in Kansas City. They gave out these "Just Here to Learn" stickers, and a bunch of the people that were running and working the event, they had different stickers that said, "Ask me about PCOS," or "Ask me about adoption," "Ask me about IVF," so that you could ask them various questions if you wanted to. And then there was a bunch of pamphlets from the various companies that were there, and they had a bunch of the fertility clinics around town represented, as well as the holistic naturopath doctor that is in town. There's a few adoption agencies, doctor's offices, and about like their 5Ks and stuff. So a lot of goodies in their bag. And then there was also a bunch of different talks. This was the schedule for the day, so you can look and see all the different talks that they had. And you just got to choose from 2 different talks during 3 breakout sessions. So the husband and I went to naturopathic medicine, the adoption experience, and adventures in babysitting inside the IVF lab. And I'll go through my notes from each of those really quick. So during the first talk, Dr. Ruse spoke, and she's a naturopathic doctor in the area. And I kind of went into this talk being like, I don't know how much I believe in all of that. But I came away like really respecting her practice and what she does. She runs a lot of tests to get a really informed look at how your hormones and vitamin levels are sitting, and then take steps to correct those. She works with you in kind of 3-month chunks, because that's how long it takes to really get effect. But she'll work with both the man and the woman and try to fix your hormonal imbalances to see if they can actually correct the underlying cause of infertility. The other thing I really like about her is that she doesn't just treat people to treat people. She will tell them, no, you need to go back to, more traditional Western medicine, like if she can't help you. If you've tried her way and it's not working, she doesn't just keep stringing you along. She tells you like where to go. So I really like that kind of integrity, but I just liked the science that was backing all of her choices. And it was just really cool. But she talked about, people who don't get enough calories, who get too few, who are overweight, underweight, deficient in this, deficient in that. Like, she just went through all the different causes of infertility that are kind of not naturally occurring, but they can benefit from some holistic medicine, naturopathic medicine. So that was actually really informative, way more informative than I thought. The second talk we went to was the adoption experience. It was actually a mother and daughter that spoke. The daughter was older now, like in her 20s, and spoke about adoption and the process. And the thing that really stood out to me about that is just how much it's changed. It was a closed adoption because that's what happened 20 years ago, and they didn't tell their daughter that she was adopted. She found out accidentally, like through an aunt, and it was just really interesting to see like how much has changed and the repercussions of the old ways of doing adoption. So that was just it was a very intimate story, and it was, that woman had adopted 5 children in total, 2 through domestic adoption and 3 through international. So it was just really interesting to hear their story, and very heartbreaking, very personal, obviously, at this point. And then finally, there was an embryologist from Blue Sky that talked about babysitting embryos in the IVF lab, and I had never really seen the inside of one of those labs. It was really cool. And it was cool to see what they are looking for. She actually had photos of like, this is mature and this is immature and this is how we grade embryos. Oh my gosh, no one's ever explained to me how embryos are actually graded and what they mean. So an embryo, I'm just gonna tell you now, an embryo usually has a number and then letter, right? So the number is the stage of the blastocyst, and 6 is the best. So they can go from 1 to 6, and 6 would mean that it is way ahead of what they would expect as far as how large it is. Then the first letter is grading the part of the embryo that will become the baby. So there's an A to C grade on that. Obviously you want A is the best, and that's just how healthy and normal looking it is. Then the second part of that is grading what will become the placenta, and there's an A to C rating on that. So the best rating you can get is a 6AA, because that would mean it's really advanced for how many days old it is. The placenta part the baby part looks great, and the placenta part looks great. I didn't know. And she says only AB scores are viable. So if they get a C rating, then that's not viable. She answered the question of what component is having a quality issue depending on what day of the waiting you see the biggest drop. So from days 1 to 3, the egg is in full control. So if you get a bunch of eggs and not a lot of them make it to day 3, that's kind of indicative of an egg quality problem. While if it's you go from your day 3 count to your day 5 count and it's really poor, that's probably the sperm's fault, because that's what kicks in right after day 3, is the sperm actually starts driving some of the growth within the embryo. Again, things I had never learned, and I really enjoyed that. And the last thing she mentioned was there was a lot of questions about PGS testing. A lot of people ask questions about PGS testing, and her view is that it's essentially almost risk-free to an embryo, and no matter the grade of the embryo, it has no bearing on the genetics of it at that stage. So a perfect 6AA embryo has just the same likelihood of being genetically abnormal as a 3BB embryo. So you can't take, you know, the quality of the embryo as an indication of its genetic components, and she just really encouraged genetic testing, PGS testing. She said it's common, or it's not common, it's required at Blue Sky, and a lot of clinics are switching to that just because it increases their success rate so much. And finally, the keynote speaker was Almendrala, who is the person who records IVFML, which is a very funny podcast. And she just went through her journey, and I think the key takeaway from that was just making sure to be vocal about your needs. She had a friend that she had a falling out with after her miscarriage, and she was so hurt that her friend was nowhere to be seen and wouldn't talk to her about it and wouldn't acknowledge the miscarriage. And at the end of the story, it turns out that her friend had dealt with someone else who had a miscarriage, and that woman had said, I never want to speak of it, I never want to acknowledge it, let's just move on. So she had applied that experience to the keynote speaker's experience, just never talked about it, but that wasn't what Anna needed. She needed someone to come over and cry with her and eat ice cream and watch a TV show. Like, that's what she wanted. So it's just important to know that sometimes you got all the time you've got to be vocal about what you need, or else you're not going to get it in this scenario. Anyway, overall the conference was really great. I got to meet up and talk with a bunch of other women. It was just nice to be in a place where everybody's level set, we're all going through the same stuff, and to have a bunch of new information that, you know, you can't necessarily find on the internet. I think it was really cool. Definitely worth whatever small amount we paid for it. And if you're in the Kansas City area, I highly recommend you look up the conference for next year, and in the meantime start coming to the KCIA support group, or just join our Facebook group. It's also active. And if you're looking for support and you're not in the Kansas City area, you can look for a Resolve group or look for a similar Facebook group in your area. Anyway, hope you enjoyed today's video. Subscribe if you want to follow along and learn some more cool stuff. And until next time, ladies, keep inviting.